title insurance protects property rights and the U.S. real estate economy. Hello, everybody. My name is Roxanne Govari with Pemberley Realty, along with my partner Santiago Guerin.
Hello, everyone. We got a great speaker in. He's chimed in on the phone. So, Roxanne, if you can tell the crowd a little bit more on who we're speaking with.
Absolutely. We apologize because we are having some technical difficulties to bring Jeremy over to you, but we have a veteran in the industry, Jeremy Lipsey with First American Title is our guest, and he is a wealth of knowledge, and he's here to tell us a lot about title insurance, why we have title insurance when we are buying or selling real property, and how title insurance can protect the buyers and sellers in a real estate transaction. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you, team, and Santiago and Elena. Thank you for inviting me on the show today. I really appreciate it. Happy early Fourth to all of you.
Happy Fourth to you and to the audience as well.
Yeah, awesome. It's going to be a beautiful one. I'm looking outside in Humboldt, California right now. Looks like it's going to be a lot of pool time and maybe some barbecue going on in America. It's going to be, I'm looking forward to it. A little downtime.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, yeah, thank you for having me. I've been in the business 25 years, serving San Diego. Really, we serve all of California, some Arizona, a little, but mainly California is 99% of our business, serving the real estate community. And through the real estate community, of course, we serve homeowners and we help buyers, through real estate professionals like yourself, Roxanne, real estate agents, brokers, commercial agents, brokers, lenders, investors, escrows, and in some cases, direct to seller. As you know, there are rarely successful FSBOs in our market, but for sale by owners do come directly to us as well. So I've been very blessed to be part of the San Diego market. As you know, there's been a lot of ups and downs from 1998 till now, but it's been a tremendous ride.
And it has been a tremendous ride, and I don't know about right now, because right now the market is very, very difficult for all of us because of the fact that there are fewer transactions and prices are very high. So that on both ends there's pressure on the real estate industry. But hey, we've been around up and downs in our business, and we will ride this wave until it starts going back up.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. Lowest volume I've seen since I've been in the business, candidly, and then you have the highest title or interest rates paired with high prices. It's just not a good concoction for success, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know how my children, for instance, are going to afford a home in San Diego if they choose to live here, and something's got to change, and it's uncertain what that will be. But you're right, been here, done it, short sales, foreclosures, the works. And so we'll get through it and find a way to push through it and succeed. And I think that you also mentioned this depressed market. It seems to me, and I don't know if you'd agree, but the transactions are much more difficult too. They're not easy transactions.
Yes.
And there's far fewer, right? So it's like it's a double whammy almost. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think title insurance in America is becoming more and more relevant, right? Because
yes.
Every time you have a more difficult deal in the eyes of a title and escrow company, what that means is, Roxanne, you're listing and selling a property to a seller that has more liens, more encumbrances, more challenges to get to the finish line, right?
Yes.
And so what we do for the audience, that I'll give you the I hate to age myself, but the Cliff Notes version. When I was in high school, we had those Cliff Notes, right? And anyway, what we do is we, along with escrow, we work to get to the finish line of passing on clean title to the new buyer, right? So you have a willing buyer and seller, you have agents, you have a lender, escrow involved in the transaction, all coming to the table to for a success story. So what we do is we first and foremost, we run a preliminary title report on the property and basically report to escrow. Hey, you have a mortgage. You're delinquent on your property taxes. You have an HOA. You have solar. All of these things, right? I don't need to dive too far into the weeds, but let's just say there's 5 liens there, both voluntary and involuntary. What we do as a title and escrow company, the short and skinny of it, is we resolve and reconcile all of those encumbrances, liens, right?
Yeah.
So that when we do get to the finish line, we deliver to the buyer a clean bill of health, right? So what that means is when the buyer, we finally close the transaction, if there's a loan, if they're bringing a loan to the table, sometimes it's cash, as you know, but if they're bringing a loan, the only voluntary lien on the property at that point should be the new mortgage, right? The new loan. That's
right.
it. Obviously, you still have your property taxes, your HOA, if there is one. And depending on how you reconcile solar, and other things, sometimes you will keep that and that will convey to the new buyer, right? In different ways and fashions. But the thing is that as a title company, we're putting a lot of man hours. The average file takes about 22 man hours from a title company. Difficult files are 47 hours. So we're putting in a lot of time and diligence to make sure that we're doing proactive work to make sure that buyer has zero problems after they close escrow, right? And the major thing that we do at the very end of the finish line is we make sure that the deed that places that property into the new owner's name is all done correctly, right? Whether it's in a trust or a married couple or whatever it might be, we're making sure that those property rights are conveyed correctly and reflective on the accounting records, which is a major role that we play in the U.S. economy, right? It is property values, or properties rather, are usually a person's biggest asset. So we're conveying those things correctly and accurately so there's no blemishes down the road, as opposed to like a regular, say, a farmer's insurance, right? You have a car crash, okay?
Yeah.
So they pay damages, they pay, there's a claim after the fact, and then they pay out at that point. What we do is we put a lot of monies into proactively curing things long before we even close escrow. So we're placing money in the game, even if that deal doesn't close, right?
Yeah.
We're doing all of that work, and we're trying to reconcile all of those liens and making it right, clearing title if you have to, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. But we're doing all of those things proactively before we even get paid and we close. Anyone gets paid, really. So it's just a huge role that we're playing in a market that, like you said, it's distressed to some degree, and it's very depressed.
Very depressed and distressed, and
yes.
And that is definitely the truth. Now let's talk about that in particular. What do you think has made this market so depressed?
That's a great question, and I've been, like I said, 26 years, and so you have these people, like, for instance, I talk to brokers all the time. Oh, well, man, I remember when rates were at 10%. Oh, and this market was amazing. We still had a great, very robust market. And I say, yeah, respectfully, Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate person, the prices in the time frame you're talking about were $90,000 for SFR, right?
Yeah.
So now we're talking about rates at 7.5, right, or 6, whatever it is, 7.5, we'll call it. And you're talking about $1 million, or $990, whatever the median pricing is in San Diego. So that's a far different equation that we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
And then add a couple other things that you probably thought of long before I did, Roxanne. That is the cost of insurance in today's market, right? You have your HOA issues, insolvency with these HOAs, all this stuff. You have a lot of casualty insurance companies. They don't want to write paper in San Diego because of the fires, because of all of these things. And then, of course, you have the price, interest rate, and then you have people's salaries that are not going up at the same rate as the prices and rates. So you have basically, and we've all heard it before, we have a affordability problem, a huge affordability problem in San Diego. So to answer your question, the long-winded answer is that we just don't have enough housing, and all of the interest rates, prices, and what people make as a salary, you know, what they bring home is being cut into by things like insurance. Okay. SDG&E is crushing us. I'm not a big advocate of SDG&E. I'll be honest, been here my whole life. And then you have inflationary pressures on oil, you know, not to get too far in the weeds, but all of things play into people's buying power, right?
Yeah.
Roxanne? And so they cannot afford a mortgage because of all of these other inflationary things surrounding us. Even water's going up. It's nuts. I live in Humboldt, so I probably have more water usage than the others, but it's going up incrementally. And just one other rising cost that American facing that take more people out of the buyer's pool for real estate. That's my conjecture, Roxanne, and I think that it holds true if you look at the numbers.
Right. Now, going back to title and the importance of title insurance for buyers and sellers, you know, going back to the basics of what makes title insurance so important, and let's talk about auctions, property auctions, and let's talk about foreclosures, and why is it that you guys, title companies, do not provide title insurance in the auction situations? Just the basic of why we do business the way that we do with title companies. Can you go a little bit into that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big questions that I've had recently, because we've seen a lot of tax lien sales, Roxanne, you're probably getting clients, oh, Roxanne, I really like to buy this property. Holy smokes, it's on sale in San Diego. And you'll go to your title company, hey, will you insure this? And most title companies will say, well, there's a disposition period of about 2 years to insure that property once you buy it. And it has a lot to do with the way that tax lien sales work, right? So basically you have a window of time where the owner can come back and say, hey, I want to pay that tax lien and I want to take the property back. So there is a chance that you could buy something at a tax lien and the previous owner can come back and has, I believe it's 12 months to come back and say, I want the property back, right? And pay the fees. And then the seller is out. So we would not obviously insure in that window of time. And for land, it's even greater, 2 years, right? Because of that disposition period. And, you know, also, you know, foreclosures. So when foreclosures, you know, go down, there is insurance after. So, you know, for instance, you buy something as a foreclosure, right? Then usually what happens is the investor or whoever purchased it delivers the trustee's deed, okay, to the title company, says, hey, I want you to insure this. And that's when the insurance takes place. But, you know, the foreclosure, it's not really a transaction. It's just it is a transaction rather, but it's a bank, you know, foreclosing on the current owner. And there's no title insurance on that portion of the deal. What happens is after the fact, we insure it when it goes to either the investor sells it, or if the homeowner buys it and lives in it, then we would insure it down the line. But yeah, we're not seeing many foreclosures. I had a couple short sales this month, honestly, and of course we insure those. And then at the auctions, you know, I'm not too familiar. You know, I see that I'm not a broker or a real estate agent, so I don't see how those work online. But I'm pretty sure that after the auction, the same thing, we insure the property after the fact. You know, after either the bank takes it or there's a buyer at the steps or at the auction, if you will, that takes ownership of the property.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Well, we are actually, as real estate agents, we are actually not allowed to sell properties that are offered in auctions, precisely for the fact that title companies do not provide insurance on those properties.
Yeah. And I don't know which kind of auction, or if you're talking about the tax lien auctions, or you're talking about the auctions on a property going to foreclosure. But yeah, many times it's a difficult road because you have IRS liens. And the other thing is you have to talk about whether it's a judicial foreclosure or a non-judicial foreclosure. Because on a tax lien sale, they do not cure any of the liens that are in place. It's on, if the onus is on the person that's buying the property. So say there's other liens besides the tax lien, right?
Those are the auctions that I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry. You threw me off with the foreclosure part, but yeah, they are foreclosing based on the tax lien. So the reason why we cannot insure those is because it's a non-judicial foreclosure, meaning in a judicial foreclosure, let's say that Bank of America is foreclosing on a property. They put everyone on notice. Hey, we're foreclosing. There's a second trust deed. There's 3 other liens behind it, right? And everyone's on notice, kind of like a bankruptcy. In a tax lien, the onus is on the new buyer to reconcile all of those things, which can be very difficult. As a matter of fact, I had one where the owner was in prison. So we had to send an affidavit. There's, as you know, or probably hopefully don't know, Roxanne, but there is a notary in a prison, right? So they can notarize documents. But in order to reconcile one of the liens on this property out here in East County, they had the person in prison had to sign this affidavit, and then we had to take it, and then we were allowed after 3 years, in this case, 3 years it took for us to unwind all these things. And finally, after helping this agent, right, get all this stuff done, she was able to sell it. And after development, it was a total success story, but it took 3 years to finally culminate into a success story. And the reason why we don't touch it, like I said, is the previous owner, in this case, was in prison, but there are folks out there who maybe they pass away, and so their heirs, oh, wow, that was grandma's property, we want to go and get it. And so they have a disposition period of over a year in some cases to go grab that property back from the seller's hands, which is not fun for anyone involved, which is why we won't insure it.
Right.
Because you're talking lawsuits, you're talking, hey, that was my property, we bought it fair and square. Well, actually, this is the law here, and then it gets really gritty, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why we don't insure those. So, and then once you get the tax certificate, which could be in less than a year, we'll look at it to insure it. We're one of the only companies that will still look at it once you have a tax cert, but it does take time to do that. And we still have to clear all the liens at that point. So, which in some cases, you have to do some dramatic stuff, which I just, represented with that story. It's a lot. And I'm not saying that there's not some diamonds in the rough out there. There absolutely are, Roxanne, but you have to know what you're getting into. And you have to have a pretty savvy title person working with you to help you reconcile all those liens, because typically that's done by your escrow, right?
Right.
And so we have to track all these people down, get them to sign. Oftentimes there's uninsured deeds involved, all kinds of things. It's crazy. But getting to what I think the main purpose of today's conversation is, and many people don't know this, but you remember there's an ex-president in one of his speeches, he mentioned, hey, let's waive title insurance on refinances. Let's use alternatives, whether you waive it or use a broker opinion letter, Roxanne. It's bad news, because what title companies do is, number one, when we get to the finish line, we do all this proactive work. We're probably one of the largest debt collectors in the country. We're collecting debt for the IRS. If the seller hasn't paid their spousal liens, they haven't paid their alimony, we're collecting that. If there's any other kind of liens, HOA, they haven't paid their property taxes, we're collecting all of that stuff in order to get to the finish line. Okay, that's a lot of curative work. More than that, okay, we're basically the gatekeepers of all correct deeds that are being recorded, right? And you can go down to the recorder today in Santee or downtown, wherever you want to go, and you can record a document. All they look at is if it's recordable, okay? They don't look at if it's the correct property. I'll give you an example. I had a client, he did it on their own, and the property was in a trust. What they did was they granted from their name to their family member, right? It's invalid. It's invalid. You have to deed from the trust to whoever you want, right? And so all they do is record things. Now that person created a cloud on title, which I helped them rectify it. But the point is this: if it's an insured deal, right, by a title insurance company, we're making sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, and property rights are conveyed correctly to the new buyer. It's very important. And I think that if you didn't have a title company on a refinance and you waive the title insurance, now who's on the hook for it? The lender. So most people don't know this, but most title problems they rear their ugly head about 30 months after the closing. 30
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Which means that the lender would have to go back to that previous owner or the previous borrower, whatever the case is. In the case of a refi, they have to go back to the borrower and say, hey, you owe us $10,000. We missed an IRS link, or we missed this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And can you imagine? That would be horrible.
Without title insurance. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And
and that's huge.
And there's so many different instances where where title becomes in easements, in sewer line encroachments, and like you said, tax liens. Nobody wants to be in that situation where they find themselves, 2-3 years later with unpaid bills that come back and haunt them, and
we're giving you a snapshot in the prelim of the property since its inception, right?
Yeah.
Easements you mentioned, CC&Rs, property taxes, all the things. We're giving it to you in a snapshot picture. Okay, and here's what we need to do to close the deal.
Yeah.
The other thing that waiving title insurance and or relying on attorneys, neither of those cover fraud or forgery. And I'd like the audience to know, because this is very important. LA is the #1 city for fraud in real estate. San Diego is the second largest for fraud and forgery in the real estate market. So San Diegans would suffer the most by not having title insurance on refinances because of the forgery and fraud. The most recent one is sellers. They call up, hey, Roxanne, I'd like you to list my property. It's free and clear out here in Campo. Please list it for me. They never meet with you. They might talk to you on a Zoom. They create all of these forged documents, and they try to get to the finish line, right? Because you go and sell it for them, and then wire me the $250,000 to this, bank, et cetera, et cetera. All they did was represent the seller with all this forgery and fraud, right? It's happened to us one time that it got through. Without a title company, all of this stuff would be passed through, and you would have
not knowing
a system that's totally deteriorated because you just don't have. The lender, no offense, they, a lot of times they won't even record the reconveyance after you pay off your loan. It's nuts.
Right.
So that said, I think we have the best system, putting title and escrow companies in charge of creating clean bills of health on title and avoiding fraud. The other thing is after the fact, after you close, we have actually at First American have a system where the buyers can sign up and they get notices if anything's changed on their title. It's amazing. It's a free tool that we offer, and the county offers it candidly as well for free. Yeah. But the reason why it's in place is because a lot of forgery, happens after the fact. You have a lot of, unfortunately, divorce situations where a spouse will try to steal the property by fraudulently recording a deed. Then they try to cash out on the property, whatever it might be. This is one example of forgery that takes place. Well, our policy covers against those things, right? Yeah. After the fact. And it's not known how those things can happen, but fraud is happening. We catch, 20 or less frauds every single month. Yeah. They're trying to perpetuate in the market and create all of these clouds on title. And these things all have to be fixed. If the onus is put on the lender or the title is waived, there's going to be a lot of issues. And that doesn't even touch on the fact that we employ, just in California, like 16,000 employees that help the California economy, stay strong. I can't really say that the California economy is strong, but I will say that we're part of eating it in a positive fashion.
Right.
And not to mention, keeping us all out of court makes a big difference, Roxanne. I mean, I'm sure in your
let's keep us all out of court. No one wants to deal with lawsuits.
I'm sure you're in your time of real estate. You probably haven't been part of it, but you might have witnessed a deal where someone got angry and sued the listing agent, sued the title company, et cetera, et cetera. No one wants that. So if we're doing the curative work, we're doing all of the work up front to avoid all of these things, then that's a role that in my, and obviously I'm biased, I've been doing it 26 years, but that's a role that can't be easily replaced by another entity.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, thank you, Jeremy, so much. Yeah. This is valuable information. And audience, if you are thinking of buying or selling, we want to be your go-to team. here in San Diego or anywhere in the U.S. We have our ties and our connections all over the state, all over the state and the country. There's my phone number. If you are trying to get a hold of Santiago, there's his phone number. We also love to hang out on Instagram, and we would appreciate a follow. There's our Instagram handle. There is our Facebook handle. And you can also visit us on our website, pemberleyrealty.com. And if you are trying to get a hold of Jeremy, I'm going to put his information out there one more time. So he is with First American, and he's a title representative. And his cell phone number is right here. His website, teameastcounty.com. His email address is right on the screen as well. So you are welcome to reach out to Jeremy. And again, we thank you very much for joining us today. And if they are watching us on YouTube, what do you want them to do, Santi?
Yep, like, subscribe, so you guys can watch all our upcoming videos. Like with our great guest today, with Jeremy giving us a wealth of knowledge on the title world.
For me, I'm sorry, Roxanne.
And thank you, Jeremy, so much for joining us. We appreciate you, and have a happy 4th of July.
Yeah, God bless you and God bless America. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye now.